I think we'll go ahead and get started. I think most everybody's here, but just like old times over here, back in the old small assembly room. Real quick, first off, just want to say a big congratulations to Karen, our latest city council member. Good luck. Also, I really just want to say a big thank you. I don't know if I wasn't aware of it, but I saw it on the news that Hatcher Hill and Commissioner Hill was involved with the Women's Suffrages Museum with a very handsome donation last week. But it looks like a wonderful project, and thank you for being very involved in the community with that. That's nice. Very good. So I guess we can just jump right into it. Amy, if you want to.
Okay, yeah, I just have a few updates for you all. Our GIS team is started their annual update, their work that they do on the school enrollment projection model for the school district. As you all might recall from previous announcements that we have made, the core inputs to that model are student addresses, births, subdivision lot inventory, student yield with new residential construction, and student mobility. This is the progression of students through grades from year to year. So all this is being updated right now. We intend to deploy this model within the next few weeks. And the projection is a 7-year forecast by grade, by school, and we've been assisting the school district with this work for nearly 20 years now. And then just a real quick, some of you might have heard that the Tennessee Department of Transportation is having some public input sessions on the I-40, I-75 corridor. It's called their Planning and Environmental Linkages Study. So there'll be one on November 10th at the Farragut Community Center. That's today. November 12th at Pellissippi State Community College. November 13th at the City of Knoxville Public Works Community Room. And all meetings will be from 5 to 7. Those will be open house, and they do have an online survey that they'll be talking about and distributing at that meeting. And that's all I have. So I say questions.
Tell us a little bit more about that meeting. What's the purpose of that meeting?
So TDOT is doing a corridor study on the I-40, I-75. They are looking into ways to address the significant congestion along that thoroughfare. And as part of that, this is part of their public input session. They will be looking for alternatives to try to relieve that congestion. That could be potentially different routes or improvements they actually make to the corridor itself or a combination thereof. Any other questions? All right, we'll get into the agenda. Let me start off. So agenda item number 12, Mr. Reynolds.
Okay, here we go. So this is a 7-lot subdivision on Locust Hill Lane in South Knoxville off of Chapman Highway. It's been postponed several times as the applicant refined their plan to meet the standards. Just real quick, so a summary is, like I said, 7 lots. It's Locust Hill Lane's off of Chapman Highway, and it's a substandard road. It kind of narrows about 15, 16 feet wide as you go back. They would be required to widen that to 20 feet along their frontage. Site distance at Chapman Highway is marginal, especially looking west or east, I'm sorry, on Chapman Highway when you're leaving the site. They might be required to do some mitigation at that intersection depending on what this site distance certification says. This is a fairly hilly site, so they will be utilizing retaining walls to try to stay underneath their land disturbance limitations or budget, and they're locating their stormwater pond to try to keep water from sheet flowing into neighbors to the south. Just real quick, location-wise, you see this is the site, and we have South Woodlawn just to the north, Colonial Village to the south, Lake Forest neighborhood to the east. It's all pretty much RN1 zoning in this area with hillside protection. And it is along a transit route. It's just on the border of a parental responsibility zone. And there's really no existing sidewalks in this vicinity. So as I mentioned, the site is pretty hilly. It's almost entirely within the hillside protection area. This is in the city, so it is regulatory per the zoning ordinance. So the site's about 5.43 acres, and just over 5 acres, that's in the hillside area. The disturbance budget is 1.97 acres, and they are proposing to disturb 1.93 acres. What you see in the red outline is what their proposed disturbance limitation is. What you're seeing in blue are retaining walls that they are proposing to try to limit the disturbance. It is a pretty aggressive attempt to stay under the land disturbance limitations. So during permitting, there's conditions that they, maintain that, show how they're going to do it, is to stay underneath the land disturbance limitations. Ultimately, if they can't, then they'll need to reduce the number of lots to stay in their disturbance limitations. But with this plan, they're showing that they believe they can stay underneath that. On the left, you see Locust Hill Lane, just to give you an idea of what kind of condition it is. This is more on the northwest side of the property. It's about 15, 16 feet wide. Their site's on the right in this image. And again, this is Chapman Highway, where there's a rock outcropping looking to the east that might need mitigation or some other type of mitigation at that intersection. So we're recommending approval of the concept plan, subject to 11 conditions. But conditions of note would be the widening of Locust Hill Lane, certification of site distance at Chapman Highway, and conformance with the hillside protection land disturbance limitations. One I forgot to note, but so it's worth go ahead and mentioning, is a recommendation to put on the final plat the amount of land disturbance each lot is allocated. Because we don't want a lot to get platted, and then they get their own land disturbance limitation based on their lot area, when some of that disturbance is being eaten up with ponds and other things on other properties. So it's all one project, but they need to allocate their disturbance appropriately to each lot. So, any questions?
I've got a question. So, is the main detention pond that's talked about all on the big lot to the east?
So it's split by 2 lots. It's it's kind of a weird shaped detention pond. It's kind of like L-shaped, so it extends over both of those lots.
Okay, and just for clarification, I noticed that one of the conditions talks about, I think the last condition talked about like a maintenance agreement for common area stuff. Since this is split on 2 lots, is it technically common area, or would that not be governed by a?
So I think I maybe worded it. I guess I added the last sentence in that was that if there's no common area or common facilities, then it's not required. But this would not require a common area if it's on 2 separate lots.
So then those 2 lot owners would be responsible for maintaining whatever portion of that detention pond's on their lot? It's not,
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know, Josh, if you want to elaborate on that.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that normal? Is there any thought of making that common area?
It's certainly normal in older subdivisions, and it's allowed by the stormwater ordinance.
Okay, okay.
Mike, I've got a question about the disturbance component, because I've driven this, I know this area pretty well, and what's the process for if it is approved, monitoring that disturbance and making sure that, if they hit a point where they do have to exceed it, that plans alter? Like, how does that function?
Well, I guess I'll answer the second part, and maybe Joshua might be able to help on the permitting side and implementation part. Is if they exceed their land disturbance, they would have to come back through Planning Commission with the level 2 application, the level 2 hillside protection application, requesting additional disturbance. And in that process, Planning Commission could require mitigation, like, additional landscaping installed or something along those lines.
I'd say from a plans review standpoint, it's fairly simple to make sure they're where they're supposed to be. From a, I guess, practical, once they're out there, it's a lot harder if they just knock down stuff. I mean, we can enforce on them, but if they go outside of that limit during construction, past the bounds of what they were permitted to do, you can't make them put the trees back. You can make them plant new ones, but that's kind of the just difficulty with this ordinance.
I guess what I'm getting at is that there are a lot of requirements in this before, the way I'm reading it is that these things have to be met before it could begin being pursued and that hillside being altered in any way. And I just want to make sure that that's correct. The component with the exit onto Chapman and the component of the road that goes into the area, that those things have to be met before there would be any disturbance happening.
Yes, that is the case.
I'll also add that the city recently hired a new landscape reviewer and inspector position who is active now. So there are more pre-construction meetings happening in cases like these than before.
Yeah, again, I'm asking these questions, and thank you for that, just because it is a really challenging area. And, so I'm concerned about just how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 29.
Okay, this is a 116 lot attached residential subdivision. It was partially rezoned in June 2025 from agricultural to planned residential up to 4.75 dwellings per acre. When it came through the Planning Commission, there was conditions attached to this rezoning that essentially limited to some degree connection to Majors Road, which is a concerned site road. But there was some ability for connection if improvements were made. But there is also 2 potential connection points to adjacent subdivision to the east. And this is being considered a phase 2 of that subdivision. So they are connecting to that. With that zoning in June 2025, there was 8 conditions attached by County Commission, and I'll go over those in just a moment. And ultimately, the staff recommendation is to approve this with 12 conditions for the concept plan and 2 conditions for the development plan. This image does not really show up very well, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that on the screen. Here's the site. Majors Road connects down to Emery Road, and then Tazewell Pike off to the east. And then we have the Gibbs Elementary, Gibbs Middle, Gibbs High up in this area. So it's not too far from the main Gibbs corridor area. Here's the aerial of the site. This field here, and I'll show you again, but this is the area that's remained ag. So during the rezoning, originally this was intended to be, or requested to be zoned planned residential. It's remaining agricultural. So the planned residential only applies to the highlighted area, and the subdivision is going to connect to Squirrel Run Lane, which is here, and connects over to Thompson School Road. So again, here's the zoning. The portion of the site basically west of the eastern floodplain of this branch creek remained ag. Everything else is planned residential. I'm just going to go through a quick summary of what those 8 zoning conditions are. They are more lengthy in their total, which in the staff report, they're copied directly from the minutes. If you want to read those, I also have a slide that shows them if you want. But the basics are, first one is no access to Majors Road or Coppic Road. So this plan shows absolutely no access to Majors or Coppic for this subdivision. No access to Grasshopper Lane, which is in the adjacent first phase subdivision, which is here. This is Grasshopper Lane with the cul-de-sac. There was is an access easement that could be utilized for a connection, but with this zoning condition, it restricted no vehicular access to that access point. Extend a sidewalk, number 3, construct a pedestrian access to Grasshopper Lane cul-de-sac, which they're doing via the cul-de-sac in their subdivision Road B. There's this pedestrian connection. Extend the sidewalk on Squirrel Run Lane to the first intersection inside this phase. So they have a sidewalk that goes to Road B, comes down Squirrel Run Lane, and would actually connect all the way back over to the existing sidewalk, which it's kind of hard to see here, but this white line is the existing sidewalk on Squirrel Run Lane. So they will extend that sidewalk to their subdivision and then to Road B. So vehicular access is limited to Squirrel Run Lane, which is what they're doing. And if you go to the site or see the plan, there's a very tight connection. They only have about a little over 30 feet to squeeze a road through to extend Squirrel Run Lane. So if you look at the plan, they have to narrow the road down to about 20 feet wide, well, to 20 feet wide, and they kind of squeeze the sidewalk through too. So they have a real tight connection point there, but they can make it work. So that if there's alternative design standards in the staff report to that regard, but that's what it's for, just so that they can make that connection work. Install a 15-foot type B vegetative buffer along all adjacent properties except for those in the Thompson Meadows subdivision. So what you see in a green line is where the type B vegetative screen will go, and the dashed green line has to do with the next one, which is existing trees on property lines shall not be disturbed as, sorry, I kind of messed that one up, but it's supposed to be existing trees on property lines are to be left undisturbed except as necessary to extend Squirrel Run Lane. So anything that's green, that applies to, anything dashed, that applies to. And then, as I've already mentioned, number 8 has to deal with this ag zoning, remaining zoned ag. Conditions of note are meeting all the zoning conditions, providing detailed landscaping plan to staff during permitting before grading permits are issued, and providing an easement on all lots that intersect the type B vegetative buffer. So that kind of goes back to what we had, I think it was last month maybe, with the case where we had a required screening along properties that there was a concern that property owners could take out some of that required landscaping. Does anybody have any questions?
Mike, can you just clarify? So there's only one way in and out for those 116 houses plus the additional development that's currently there?
So the existing development has 2 access points. You can't see it in this. Let me see if I have another image. I don't. There's actually another access point that connects to this subdivision up here. So this subdivision has 2 points of access. You are correct, though, that this subdivision would only have one access point up to this point. You know, once they hit here, they have two potential accesses. They could go straight on Squirrel Run Lane, or if they had to, they could go up this way and go through this subdivision's access. So
I guess
it's really this.
And the fire department and emergency personnel, I mean, they're okay with this development being that way, I mean, in case there's an emergency. I guess, is that part of the approval process for them to look at this?
As part of the engineering staff looks at it and and considers those issues, yeah.
All right, so this was discussed during the county commission when all those conditions of approval, and Director Snowden weighed in on this as well. All right, thank you, Mike. We will move on to agenda item number 38. I'll transfer this over to Whitney. It's 11B25 UR.
I think it worked, yeah. So this is a USON review for 4 duplex lots in the RA zone. The property is 1.88 acres. It's on Emery Road, just west of Brown Gap. So all 4 duplexes will be utilizing the same driveway at this point. There is an existing single-family house on the property that will be subdivided off, but it's not under the USON review. We're just looking at the duplexes. The minimum lot area for each duplex is 12,000 square feet. The proposed lots are 12,000 square feet to approximately 19,000 square feet. So there is a condition to preserve the trees along this property line that are within 10 feet of the property line. And the driveway starts approximately 20 feet from the property line. So it's going to kind of just preserve the trees that are straddling along the line. There's also some comments about safety on this one. This is a TDOT road, so site distance will have to be verified. 496 feet in both directions before they can get a driveway permit. This is just the aerial that I was talking about. It'll preserve kind of these trees along here. And then these are the elevations of the duplexes. There's another condition to add an extra window up here. Any questions?
Got a quick question. I noticed there was a placeholder on the, I guess, the concept plan or the plat for the instrument describing the driveway easement. Is that county law will review that, right? That's,
Yeah, when it
Okay.
gets platted.
okay.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 42. This is an ordinance amendment. It's, this is associated with recent legislative actions related to vested rights. Michelle?
Thank you, Amy. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. So this is kind of a repeat of what the city did, just in the county. So Christina went into good detail with you guys, so we'll just give you some highlights here. Early this year, this state legislator changed the date when rights become vested from the date when a building permit or development is approved to the date when the applicant submits the required documentation to receive county approval of a building permit or development plan. So state legislature also extended the periods of time during which rights stay vested to 3 years, and in part tied that time period to deadlines for administrative appeals. And finally, the amended statute leaves it to the county to decide whether an applicant's submission is in substantial compliance with the local development ordinances and regulations and to define what constitutes substantial compliance. The definition of substantial compliance has been included in the proposed amendments. So basically, it means that the proposal does not require a variance, that it complies with any identified principal use in the zoning standards, proposes nothing else that the zoning code prohibits. It does not propose a planned development or a non-conforming use. And if it requires a use on review or a development plan or is in the H overlay and the project receives a planning staff recommendation and then board approval, the vested right shall attach as of the date of the submission. And I'll even say, even if it doesn't receive staff recommendation, if it's approved by the board, then the vested right shall attach as of the date of submission. There were several other minor amendments that were included, and these were just minor housekeeping types of things. Some of those were provisions added to several sections clarifying certain aspects of the review pertaining to vested rights, such as who makes final determinations on a permit status when it's vested, and then when revised plans are vested. Other minor changes include correcting the name of the applicable county department, deleting the word sector from sector plans, and changing reference to the general plan to the comprehensive plan, and other minor changes like that. And then finally, we deleted the Board of Zoning Appeals as the body who could extend a permit date, as the board does not currently have this authority. That's the end of that. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer that. I also have the amendments pulled up on my computer if y'all have any questions pertaining to any specific articles.
I do have kind of a quick question on that. So they're pushing up the time when the clock starts to the submission, excuse me, as long as that is of substantial completion. So it's for 3 years after that submission, but you also had mentioned appeals and some things like that in there. And it just is a case, okay, so somebody comes in and applies, and it gets postponed for 6 months, and then it's approved. Is there a period now 2.5 years? Because it was from the submission, it's been 3 years?
As long as that application was in substantial compliance when it was submitted, then yes. So if that postponement was tied to something that they hadn't done and that it wasn't in substantial compliance because it wasn't complete, then I think it's determined by when that application is considered complete, because that's when it's in substantial compliance.
I guess I was thinking more from a neighborhood opposition scenario, or even if there's a suit filed. Say, there's an application and then you gain approval somewhere down the line, and then there's a suit filed against that, and it takes 2 years. Then, am I understanding it correctly that say 2 years pass, then you say, okay, well, you have a vested right, but you only have a vested right for 1 more year?
Yeah, that is how I interpret that, but I'll also defer to Tasha if she's got a differing opinion, her legal counsel.
No, I agree.
Okay, just trying to understand. Thank you.
I'm sure we'll have to look at it again closely when those scenarios are going to play out, but
Yeah, just
Michelle and I
curious.
kind of looked at this a little bit earlier. And
Good enough. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. We will move on to number 22, 11A 25RZ.
This rezoning request is for a 6-acre property along Xavierville Pike. The applicant has requested to go from agricultural to PR at 5 dwelling unit per acre. The predominant zones along this segment of Xavierville Pike are agricultural and low density residential. There is a PR at 3.5 dwelling unit zone approximately 800 feet west of the subject parcel, which was rezoned from agricultural last year. The broader area has several PR zones with varying densities along Governor John Sevier Highway. Looking at the 2024 growth policy plan, the property is located within the planned growth area. Prior to the 2024 update to the growth policy plan, this area was designated as rural area. I'm going to go back to the slide so that you can see the change. The suburban residential place type allows consideration of PR zone with a density up to 12 dwelling unit per acre. Looking at the existing land use, the general development pattern along Xavierville Pike consists of houses on lots ranging from 15,000 square feet to several acres. Within 1 mile of the subject property, there is a commercial node at the intersection of Chapman Highway and Governor John Sevier Highway. There is also New Hope Elementary School within a mile that you cannot see on this map. There is an existing house on the property. From aerial image, we can see the property is surrounded by residential subdivisions on 2 sides. Staff recommends approving the PR zone with a density up to 4 dwelling unit per acre, since this would be consistent with the recent change in the growth policy plan. The PR zone at this density is compatible with the surrounding single-family subdivision with the RA zone and the residential properties with the agricultural zone. The RA zone allows houses on 10,000 square feet lots, which equates to an approximate density of 4 dwelling unit per acre. The recommended zoning is supported by the suburban residential place type and the Comprehensive Plan's Implementation Policy 5, which promotes neighborhood with a variety of housing types with close proximity to amenities. We received some public comments expressing concerns about the capacity of Xavierville Pike. Xavierville Pike is a minor collector with an approximate pavement width of 18 feet. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. We'll now move on to agenda item number 25. This is 11G 25RZ. I'm gonna let Jake get hooked up here.
Thank you, Amy. So this is going to be for case 11G25RZ, which is to rezone a approximately 4-acre parcel off Asheville Highway from agricultural to CA general business. This parcel is within the urban growth boundary and is just past one of the extensions of the city border with the county, just east of Breakbill Road. Staff is recommending approval of this request based on its consistency with changes of conditions in the area over recent years, as well as with its designation by county plans. The county comprehensive plan has a place type of corridor mixed use on the property. Appendix H of the county comprehensive plan details additional criteria which must be met by a zoning request, which is partially related as the CA zone is to the CMU place type. Staff feels that this additional criteria is satisfied by the request compatibility with the zoning of adjacent parcels, which is largely planned residential, as well as existing CA zones in the area with agricultural zoning that has been developed for residential uses. Additionally, this property is within the East County Community Plan, which identifies Asheville Highway as a development corridor where upzoning such as this should be concentrated. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jake. We will move on to agenda item number 10. This is 11K 25RZ. Staff is recommending denial of this one.
All right, this is a request to rezone a 0.97 acre parcel located at 6260 Clinton Highway from CH1 Highway Commercial to CG1 General Commercial. The hillside protection overlay would be retained. The subject property is accessed off of The subject property is accessed off of Clinton Highway, a major arterial commercial corridor that features an array of commercial uses and limited large-scale multifamily developments. Development trends in the area have primarily consisted of intensive auto-oriented commercial uses, such as outdoor and indoor storage facilities, vehicle dealership and repair services, storage yards, and retail and dining shopping centers. This stretch of Clinton Highway between Merchant Drive and Shad Road consists almost entirely of CH zoning in the city, with one property zoned RN6 multifamily residential located closer to Merchant Drive east of the property. County properties are primarily zoned CA general business. Less intensive zoning, such as residential, commercial, and office, has been focused on side streets abutting the Clinton Highway corridor. The CG1 zoning district is intended to provide for a mix of retail, personal service, office, and residential uses and promote mixed-use development in a pedestrian-oriented environment. This district is also intended for primarily indoor commercial uses. The existing CH district is intended to accommodate higher intensity commercial uses, including those that require permanent outdoor service and storage areas. As previously mentioned, development trends along Clinton Highway have not been pedestrian-oriented and are geared towards more auto-oriented uses. This cohesive corridor of CH zoning would be appropriate to maintain, as the character of Clinton Highway supports more intensive uses that could be challenging or inappropriate to locate elsewhere. For these reasons, staff recommendation is to deny the CG1 zoning district. Are there any questions?
Do we know why they want the CG?
From my understanding, it's because of the dimensional standards in the CG zone. It doesn't have a minimum lot area requirement, so.
So can they not, does that mean they can't develop it under the CH, or?
So they are able to develop it under CH. I'll let the applicant speak more to their exact project that they have in mind, but essentially for how they want to develop it and subdivide it, they would want a smaller lot size than what's allowed in CH right now. Just under an acre.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. So the next two, we'll turn over to Jesse. Number 5, which is a rezoning and sector plan and one-year plan amendment request.
So this is a rezoning and plan amendment in the city for a 15,760 square foot lot at 251 Davenport Road in South Knoxville, about a third of a mile south of Sevier Avenue. The request is to rezone from RN2 to RN3 and amend the land use classification from low-density residential to the South Waterfront Mixed Use District Type 2. The South Waterfront Mixed Use District Type 2 land use exists in the one-year plan map, but not in the South City Sector Plan map. As you can see here in the South City Sector Plan, it's low-density residential. The designation came about later as a Phase 2 extension of South Waterfront Mixed Use District 1, which is tied to the form-based code along the shoreline. The form-based code permits intensive building forms and emphasizes design over prescribing specific uses on a property. This Type 2 classification is not tied to the form-based code and instead provides development flexibility by permitting consideration of a wide array of zoning districts, more than any other land use classification, including general commercial zoning and general industrial zoning. South Waterfront Mixed Use District 2 anticipates more intensive development being made feasible with infrastructure improvements and growing amenities stemming from development created under the form-based code. It's important to note that the Type 2 district strictly adheres to the boundaries of the South Waterfront Vision Plan, which is what established the form-based code and this bold vision for development in South Knoxville. The subject property is not included in that plan. Extending such a broad and intensive land use classification to a property that was not studied in the South Waterfront Vision Plan that created the classification would be an inappropriate extension, especially considering the stable and built-out residential context in which the property is located. The existing low-density residential land use classification reflects established development in this area, and it's not the result of an error or omission in the plans. While the South Waterfront community along the shoreline has seen significant residential and commercial development, as well as ongoing utility improvements and street improvements, that activity is not extended to this area surrounding the subject property. This subject lot contains a 1960s home that appears to be in good condition, and this home aligns with the budding residential development. There have been no changes in conditions in the immediate area in over 15 years. In the zoning map, you can see that this property is surrounded on all sides by RN2, and it has the hillside protection overlay, which reflects steep slopes on the lot and in the general area. A key distinction between RN2 and the requested RN3 district is that RN3 permits consideration of townhouses through special use review. Based on the area of this lot, up to 4 townhouses could be proposed if the existing home is demolished and the townhouses are made to face an undeveloped alley to the north, which you can see here on the city ward map. Such intensive development at this location is not warranted. The subject property and adjacent lots have retaining walls along the sidewalk on Davenport Road, so if townhouses were permitted, they would either tower over pedestrians on the street, or the retaining wall would be demolished and graded for this new development. A row of side-facing townhouses would interrupt the pattern on the block, activating the side of the building rather than the street. It's also worth noting that city engineering's preliminary analysis of site distance here showed that there may be an inadequate intersection site distance where Davenport Road and Kingland Avenue meet across from the subject property. More residential units could potentially have an adverse impact on traffic safety. Staff are recommending denial of South Waterfront Mixed Use District Type 2 because this property was not studied in the plan that created the designation. We're recommending denial of RN3 because it's inconsistent with the land use plans, and it could permit development that would disrupt the established residential pattern and create conflicts with the steep slopes on the property and traffic conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We can move on to agenda item number 36.
This is a request for 2 duplexes on adjacent contiguous lots on Westland Drive, less than half a mile from South North Shore Drive, leading to the Concord Park complex to the west. This case was tabled last year after staff recommended approval, but with substantial conditions based on the site plan that you see to the left. Conditions included requiring the applicant to shift their driveway to the east lot line to improve traffic safety with the adjacent private road to the west called Westland Bay Drive. The applicant was also strongly encouraged to reorient the duplexes so that they actually face Westland Drive to be more compatible with surrounding residences. After untabling the case this year, the applicant did revise their site plan to align with staff recommendations. Now, all 3 lots, including the existing single-family lot in the rear, will utilize the same access easement down the center, and the duplexes will face the street. This provides a safer and consolidated access point to this minor arterial street. This property is in an area that's solidly classified under the suburban residential place type, which permits consideration of attached homes as a secondary use. 2 duplexes in this location will help diversify housing options in an area that is almost entirely single-family detached development. Staff are recommending approval of the 2 duplexes because they are consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's Implementation Policy 5 to create neighborhoods with a variety of housing types and amenities in close proximity. The Concord Park system is 2/3 of a mile to the west and is a significant asset to the area with its playgrounds, sailing club, dog park, hiking trails, swimming, golfing, baseball, and venues for community events. This request is also aligned with Policy 6 to promote attainable housing that meets the needs of current and future residents. The proposed duplexes will help diversify housing options in a neighborhood comprised of single-family detached homes with a housing form that's compatible in height and scale with existing residences. This case is being presented because there was significant neighborhood opposition, that there haven't been any new comments since July. It's unclear how much opposition there is since the site plan was updated because it did address some of the concerns that were expressed. However, most of the concerns focused on the development of duplexes in this area in general. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Are there any other items that anybody would like to discuss today?
I had a quick question. I don't remember the case number, but it's the rezoning or maybe the first time zoning of some parcels that are downtown on around Depot and yeah, that's the name on the applicant file, but I just was curious a little bit more about those.
Yeah, so those are cases 11-E and 11-F 25RZ. They're within a couple hundred feet of each other on West Depot. We don't, let me say this, so they're requesting to go from the no zone designation because it was formerly railroad right-of-way to DKW and industrial to DKW. And so what was your specific question about the rezoning requests?
You actually answered it, which was the vagary around, because DKW seemed like, it didn't seem like there was really activity going on there. It just seemed like it was being applied after not ever having something, and now you've answered the question. Yeah. Thanks.
I've got a quick question. I know we received a update to item number 13. It's the applicant's level 2 certification of appropriateness, that they want to extend the hillside ridgetop. Is that what it was? They want to extend the hillside protection overlay. So it sounded like they had already kind of clear-cutted prior to the approval. And I know that y'all had mentioned that because we have now a landscaper, that they're going to go back in and look at this. What kind of penalty is there for a developer that goes in and does that? I mean, I feel like now we're kind of going back and giving him or her the rights to do what they want to do, even though they've already kind of gone against the rules and graded the property. Can you kind of speak a little bit more
Jesse,
about
do you
that
want
one?
to discuss, I'll let Jesse discuss the change that was made, so maybe that one.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about.
So the change that was made was based on input from the Urban Forestry Division, who now houses the new city landscape reviewer and inspector position. So this is a really, this is a new time when it comes to inspecting tree removals, like what we saw on this property. But the site analysis that I did and looking at the 2025 aerial maps, it appears that they are still within what they're requesting, which is 2.8 acres, when the disturbance budget is 2.6. Because of the utility easement that exists there, that is unbuildable. In the past, we have provided an alternative slope analysis or looked at that to see if the requested disturbance is proportional to what's buildable. So we are recommending approval of this one, but because there was already unpermitted clearing and grading, we are adding a condition that the limits of disturbance be clearly defined and fenced and marked. And this would be subject to inspection before and during construction activities associated with the request. There was some minor changes to that condition language with input from the city, clarifying that it would fence and protect the critical root zone of the trees as defined in the tree protection ordinance. And instead of calling out that specific position, that new position, it's just saying that it's subject to inspection by the city. So that provides some more flexibility on how the city will handle it, but it also clarifies exactly where that fencing and marking needs to occur.
Will they have to go back and do any kind of replanting at all? Or
So, I mean,
I guess not, because they need all of that, is that right?
yeah, and there is the tree protection ordinance, which requires, I believe it's 6 trees per acre. So that would still be in play with this development. But at least we would have the disturbance for the hillside protection piece of it enforced in terms of it being no greater than 2.8 acres if the planning commission approves that amount.
Okay. Just seems like we hear a lot of similar stories from the community in properties like this. So, okay. Thank you.
May I make a quick, this is a suggestion to Chair and Director Brooks. With the new position it's come out a couple of times now during this meeting, if there was a way for our group to get exposure to the new person and what their role entails, how it kind of integrates, that could be maybe helpful for us.
I actually just made that note.
Okay.
It might be helpful for you all to better understand that. Yes, we will definitely do that. Yeah. Anything else? Any questions?
Well, I think that was a nice short meeting, and we'll be adjourned. Thank you.